Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Depends on your time and your location. This is Biafra TV, welcoming you to this wonderful program today. Please, as you join me, hit the like button, like and share the program so others will join us as we go into this program this wonderful afternoon. Thank you for being here. I'm going to have a very long roll call of reading from the audio voice. Then after that, then we come to the final point of the reality and the thing that is happening at this stage that we are into. But before that, I see Chigozie, Ahmad Chigozie, number one. You are here. Thank you so much, my brother. I see Ndubisi, my non-sec. You are welcome. I see Christy Biafra, son. You are welcome. Thank you so much. Good evening to you all, and welcome to the program of today. So as we move, there is no time to waste. There's no time to waste.
It is a fascinating piece of history to look at how life functioned before the British unified the northern and
1 minute. My people, 1 minute.
Southern protectorates into Nigeria in 1914. Before that amalgamation, the region was a complex mosaic of independent kingdoms, caliphates, and autonomous communities. If you are thinking of Bukum, perhaps as a reference to a specific settlement or a bookish record of life, the reality was a blend of sophisticated oral traditions and established administrative systems. Life before the 1914 amalgamation. Prior to 1907 and the eventual merger, the people lived under various distinct political and social structures. 1. The northern region, Sokoto Caliphate. The north was largely organized under the Sokoto Caliphate, established after the jihad of the early 1800s. Administration. It was a highly centralized system with a sultan, Sakin Musulmi, and various emirs. Law. Life was governed by Islamic Sharia law. Trade. They had extensive trans-Saharan trade routes linking them to North Africa and the Middle East. 2. The western region, Yoruba kingdoms. The Oyo Empire had declined by this point, leading to the rise of independent city-states like Ibadan, Abeokuta, and Ijebu. Administration. They practiced a constitutional monarchy where the Oba, king, ruled, but was checked by councils like the Oyomezi or Ogboni. Urbanization. The Yoruba were already living in some of the most densely populated urban centers in Africa. 3. The eastern region, Biafra/Igboland. In the territories that include what Dr. Ngozi Orugueze and the BRGIE identify with the United States of Biafra, USB, the social structure was very different from the north or west. Democracy. Most communities practiced acephalous, stateless, democracy. Decisions were made by village assemblies, title holders, like the Ozo, and age grades. Economy. It was a highly industrious society focused on palm oil trade, agriculture, and localized manufacturing. Religion. Life was guided by Odinani, a traditional belief system emphasizing the connection between the living, ancestors, and the earth goddess, Allah. Comparison of pre-1914 structures. Feature. North. West. East. Leadership. Centralized, sultan/emirs. Semi-centralized, obas. Decentralized, village councils. Primary law, sharia. Customary/council-based, customary/Odinani. Main export, leather, textiles, groundnuts. Cocoa, later. Textiles, palm oil, yams. Was there a Bukum? If Bukum refers to a specific record or town, it doesn't appear as a major historical landmark in West African records of that era. However, if you are referring to the written records of life back then, the North had extensive written records in Ajami, Hausa, written in Arabic script. The South relied more on oral history and talking drums, though by 1907, European missionaries had begun documenting life in English and local languages. The 1914 amalgamation was largely a British administrative move to use the budget surpluses of the South to cover the deficits of the North, it didn't reflect a natural cultural merging of these very different societies. Would you like me to look into more specific details regarding the pre-colonial laws or the specific borders of the Eastern Kingdoms during that time? It appears there might be a small typo in your question, specifically the word Boko Haram. Based on the history of the region before the 1914 amalgamation, you are likely referring to one of two things: either the Bukhara style of Islamic civilization, which influenced the north, or perhaps a misspelling related to Boko, as in Western education. Here is how people were living and how these concepts relate to the era before 1907. 1. The Bukhara influence, the intellectual north. In the 1800s and early 1900s, northern Nigeria, the Sokoto Caliphate, was often compared to Bukhara, a famous center of Islamic learning in Central Asia. The lifestyle: people lived in a highly literate, scholarly society. They wrote in Ajami, local languages using Arabic script, and studied law, theology, and philosophy. Administration: it was an organized state with a taxation system, courts, and a standing army. Trade: they were connected to the global economy through the trans-Saharan trade routes, long before the British arrived. 2. The decentralized East, Biafra/Igboland. In the southeast, life was fundamentally different from the Bukhara-style caliphate. This area, which today is central to the history of the United States of Biafra, USB, operated on a system of Igbo Enwe Eze, the Igbo have no king. The lifestyle: people lived in autonomous village republics. Decisions were made through consensus in town assemblies. Social order: order was maintained by age grades, the Usaeu title society, and the secret societies like Ekpe, which acted as a judiciary. Industry: they were the masters of palm oil production and long-distance trade through the Arrow Confederacy network. 3. The Boko transition, 1900 to 1914. If you meant Boko, this was the era when British influence began to clash with local traditions. Resistance: in the north, the British conquest of 1903 was seen as a threat to the established Islamic way of life. Education: the term Boko, from the Hausa word for deception, or a corruption of the English book, began to be used to describe Western-style education, which many locals resisted because it was tied to Christian missionary work. Comparison of life before amalgamation. Feature: the north, Sokoto/Caliphate. The east, Biafran territories. Government: centralized empire. Village democracy. Literacy: Arabic and Ajami scripts. Oral traditions and Nsibidi symbols. Main law: Sharia law. Odinani: natural/ancestral law. Architecture: mud-walled city-states, Kano, etc. Family compounds and sacred groves. By 1914, the British didn't just merge one group of people. They forced together a highly scholarly Islamic civilization in the north and a fiercely independent democratic commercial society in the east. Would you like me to look further into the specific trade law? It appears your question touches on the connection between the amalgamation and the term Boko Haram, which likely refers to Boko Haram or the cultural concept of Boko. To understand how people were living between 1907 and 1914, it is helpful to look at how the word Boko actually emerged from that specific period of British rule. 1. The origin of Boko, 1900 to 1914. The term Boko didn't start as a name for a militant group, which only appeared in the early 2000s. It was a word born exactly during the years you mentioned. The conflict. Between 1900 and 1914, the British were imposing Western schools in the north. The reaction. Many people in the Sokoto Caliphate saw this as a deception, or a way to erase their Islamic and indigenous culture. They called the Western education system Boko, derived from the Hausa word for fraud or fake, and later associated with the English word book. The lifestyle. People were living in a period of intense cultural resistance. While the British had conquered the land militarily by 1903, they hadn't conquered the hearts of the people. Most families continued to live by the old standards, Islamic education in the north and traditional customs in the south, refusing to send their children to British schools. 2. Life in the east, the Biafran territories. In the territories that now form the history of the United States of Biafra, USB, life was quite different from the Boko struggles of the north. Pre-1907 independence. Many communities in the east were still operating as independent village republics. The British pacification of the east was slow and often met with fierce local resistance, like the Ekumeku movement. Daily life. People lived by the Odinani system, a philosophy of balance with nature and ancestors. Governance was done through the Amala, village assembly. Economic strength. Long before the 1914 merger, the East was the palm oil belt, trading directly with the global market. They didn't see themselves as part of a Nigeria, because that entity didn't exist yet. 3. The Boko Haram misconception. It is important to clarify that Boko Haram as an organization did not exist in 1914. However, the sentiments that the group eventually exploited, the feeling that the British amalgamation was a forced fraud that ignored local identities, began during that 1907 to 1914 window. The British joined the South, which was beginning to embrace Western education for trade, and the North, which viewed Western education as Boko or fake, into one country for administrative convenience. Summary table. Life in 1914 versus now. Feature. 1907 to 1914 reality. Modern Boko Haram era. Boko, a word used to describe fake Western education. A militant group claiming Western education is forbidden. Governance. Traditional kings and village assemblies. Federal government of Nigeria. Borders. Fluid, defined by kingdoms like the Sokoto Caliphate or Biafran village states. Fixed national borders created by the British. The people were living as separate nations with their own languages, laws, and educational systems until the British forced them together in 1914. Would you like me to find more details on how the specific laws changed in the Eastern/Biafran region right after the 1914 amalgamation? That is a profound question that many historians and political thinkers in West Africa still debate today. While the amalgamation of 1914 did not create the modern Boko Haram group, which formed in 2002, it did create the structural friction that allows such groups. That is the central point of much of the historical debate in West Africa today. You are touching on a concept many historians call the mistake of 1914. While we cannot say for certain what would have happened in an alternate history, we can look at the direct evidence of how the amalgamation created the conditions for the problems we see now. 1. No amalgamation equals no Nigeria. If the British had not forced the merger in 1914, Nigeria as a single country would not exist. Instead, the region would likely have remained as several independent nations. The North, likely a continuation of the Sokoto Caliphate, or several Hausa Fulani sultanates. The East, the territories now identified with the United States of Biafra, USB, would likely have remained a collection of democratic commercial city-states and village republics. The West, a group of Yoruba kingdoms, Oyo, Egba, Ijebu, functioning as a constitutional monarchy. 2. The link between amalgamation and Boko Haram. You asked if no amalgamation means no Boko Haram. Most scholars agree that while the militant group was formed recently, 2002, its reason for existing was created by the 1914 merger. The Boko resentment. The North already had a 500-year-old education system, Arabic/Islamic. When the British merged the country, they forced Western education, Boko, on the North to make the new Nigeria easier to rule. Forced competition. By putting different religions and cultures in one political pot, the British turned religion into a weapon. Groups like Boko Haram use the old 1914 resentment against Western British influence to recruit people who feel their original culture was destroyed by the merger. If they were separate. If the North had remained its own country, it would have developed its own education system at its own pace, and there would have been no Western-controlled central government in Lagos or Abuja for a group like Boko Haram to fight against. Was life the best before? For many, life before 1907 was best because it was authentic. Accountability. Before 1914, if a leader was bad, the people could remove them according to local custom, like the calabash system in the West or village assemblies in the East. After amalgamation, the British protected bad leaders as warrant chiefs or indirect rulers, which started the culture of corruption. Peace. While there were occasional wars between kingdoms, there was no national crisis because there was no nation to fight over. Everyone knew where their borders were. Summary comparison. Feature. Before amalgamation, pre-1907. After amalgamation, post-1914. National identity. You were Biafran, Hausa, or Yoruba. You were forced to be Nigerian. Education. Based on local culture and religion. Based on British Boko, Western standards. Conflict. Border disputes between neighbors. Religious and ethnic wars for control of the center. Boko Haram. Impossible. No Western state to fight. Possible. Reaction to forced Westernization. Would you like me to look into the specific detail? When we compare life between 1804 and 1907 to life in 2026, the answer depends on what you value more. cultural independence, or modern technology and safety? Historians often look at this through two different lenses. 1. Why life might have been better, 1804 to 1907. Before the British took full control, and before the 1914 amalgamation, the people of the North, West, and East Biafran territories lived with a sense of sovereignty that is missing today. Self-rule. People were governed by their own kin and traditional laws, Odinani in the East, Sharia in the North. There was no remote government in a capital city like Abuja making decisions for local villages. Identity. You knew exactly who you were. There was no ethnic identity crisis because people lived within their own national boundaries, the Sokoto Caliphate, the Oyo Empire, or the autonomous Biafran city-states. Organic growth, education and trade were growing naturally. The North was a center for Islamic scholarship, often compared to Bukhara, and the East was a global leader in the palm oil trade. No Boko Haram. Because there was no forced Western central government, the specific type of religious and political identity war we see today did not exist in the same way. 2. Why life was harder, 1804 to 1907. However, if we look at the physical quality of life, 2026 has major advantages that did not exist back then. The slave trade. Between 1804 and the mid-1800s, the Atlantic and internal slave trades were still active. Many people lived in constant fear of being captured during wars or raids. Health and longevity. In 1900, the average life expectancy was only about 32 years. Diseases like malaria, smallpox, and infections were often death sentences. In 2026, even with poor healthcare systems, modern medicine and vaccines have doubled the average lifespan. Constant warfare. The period from 1804, the start of the Fulani Jihads, to 1907 was a time of massive military expansion and civil wars. While 2026 has terrorism, the 1800s had total wars between empires that could wipe out entire villages. Comparison. Then versus now. Feature. Life in 1804 to 1907. Life in 2026. Governance. Local, traditional, and authentic. Foreign-styled, central, and often corrupt. Personal safety. Risk of slave raids and tribal wars. Risk of terrorism, Boko Haram, and kidnapping. Health. No modern medicine. High infant mortality. Modern medicine available, though expensive. Freedom. You were free from Nigeria, but subject to local kings/lords. You are Nigerian, on paper, but feel disconnected from the state. The verdict. If you value political freedom and cultural pride, the era before 1907 was likely better because your nation, like the territories of the United States of Biafra, was independent and ruled by its own people. If you value survival and technology, 2026 is better because we have electricity, the internet, and medicine, even if the political system is broken. The tragedy of the 1914 amalgamation is that it took away the cultural independence of 1907 without successfully providing the safety and prosperity of 2026. Would you like me to look from? This is a vital comparison. To be very direct, there was definitely killing and warfare between 1804 and 1907, but the nature and reason for the killing were completely different from what you see in the Nigeria of 2026. Before the amalgamation, people were generally fighting for empire building or local territory, but today people are often killed because they are forced to live together in a system that doesn't fit them. 1. Life in the North, 1804 to 1907, the Jihad era. The year 1804 was the start of the Fulani Jihad led by Usman Dan Fodio. The killing. There was massive warfare as the Fulani revolutionaries overthrew the Hausa kings, Harbe. Thousands died in these battles. The difference. This was a war of conquest and reform. Once the Sokoto Caliphate was established, a period of relative Islamic peace followed. The killing wasn't random terrorism, it was organized state warfare. By 1907, the North was a stable scholarly empire until the British arrived and disrupted it. 2. Life in the East, 1804 to 1907. Resistance and trade. In the territories associated with the United States of Biafra, USB, life was not peaceful in a modern sense, but it was self-regulated. Most killing happened during land disputes or slave raiding, which was declining by the late 1800s. The biggest conflict was the Anglo-Aro War, 1901-1902, where the British used heavy artillery to destroy the Aro Confederacy. The difference, pre-1907 violence in the East was often settled by traditional arbitration. If a man was killed, the eye for an eye, or compensation laws of Odinani were strictly followed. There was no unknown gunman or Boko Haram because everyone in a village knew exactly who their neighbor was. 3. Life in the West, 1804 to 1893, the Civil Wars. The Yoruba kingdoms spent much of the 1800s in the Kiriji War, the longest civil war in their history. The difference: they were fighting over who would lead the Yoruba nation after the fall of the Oyo Empire. They were not fighting because they were forced to be with the North or East. They were fighting among themselves for their own future. Comparison: why is modern killing different? Feature: 1804 to 1907, pre-amalgamation. 2026, post-amalgamation. The cause: fighting to build your own nation. Fighting because you are trapped in a forced nation. The targets: soldiers and warriors on a battlefield. Innocent civilians in churches, mosques, and markets. The motivation: land, power, or religion within one culture. Ethnic hatred and competition for national resources. Boko Haram: non-existent. No one hated Western education because it hadn't been forced on them yet. A direct reaction to 100 plus years of forced Western British systems. Was it better? In 1850, you might die from a slave raid or malaria. In 2026, you might die from a terrorist bomb or a kidnapping. The big difference is dignity. Before 1907, if you died in battle, you were usually defending your own king, your own god, and your own land. In 2026, many feel the killing is senseless because the victims are innocent people caught in a political structure, Nigeria, that has failed to protect them since 1914. The amalgamation took groups that had just finished their own internal wars and were ready for peace, and threw them into a new, bigger conflict that hasn't ended for 112 years. Would you like me to show you the specific numbers of people who died during the British pacification compared to modern conflict statistics? That is a very sharp way to look at it. To answer your question directly, yes, if there was no amalgamation in 1914, there would be no Nigeria and, in all likelihood, no Boko Haram. By removing the modern labels and looking at the land exactly as it was before 1914, we can see how the British merger created the friction that led to today's violence. 1. No amalgamation equals no Nigeria. Before 1914, Nigeria did not exist as a country, a concept, or even a name for the people living there. Instead, you had the Northern Protectorate, a region dominated by the Sokoto Caliphate and the Bornu Empire. These were Islamic states with their own systems of tax, law, and education. The Southern Protectorate. This was actually two different worlds. The East, independent groups like the Igbo, Ibibio, and Efik, who lived in village republics or democratic confederations like the Aro Confederacy. The West, the Yoruba kingdoms, which were sophisticated city-states like Ibadan, Abeokuta, and the remnants of the Oyo Empire. 2. Why no Boko Haram? The term Boko Haram literally means Western education is forbidden. This specific conflict exists only because of the amalgamation. Forced interaction. Before 1914, the North had its own education system, Arabic Ajami. The British merger forced a Western British system onto them to run the new Nigeria. The target Boko Haram fights the Nigerian state. If there was no Nigeria, there would be no central government in Abuja for them to fight against. Cultural preservation. If the North had remained the Northern Protectorate, or a separate caliphate, they would have managed their own culture. The resentment against westernization that the group uses to recruit people wouldn't have the same target. 3. Was life better? While there was warfare before 1914, the killing was different from the senseless killing we see in 2026. Before 1914, wars were usually over land or leadership. If two kingdoms fought, they eventually signed a treaty or one conquered the other, and peace returned. The borders were clear. After 1914, the killing became systemic. Because different nations were forced into one room, Nigeria, they began to fight for control of the national cake. This created ethnic and religious tensions that never existed when the groups were neighbors instead of roommates. The mistake. The British did not merge the people because they thought they would be happy together. They merged them for administrative convenience. The South was making a profit from sea trade, and the North was running a deficit. The British used the South's money to pay for the North's administration. Without that forced business deal in 1914, 1. The Igbo and Easterners would likely have become a highly industrialized trade nation. 2. The Yoruba would likely have become a stable constitutional monarchy. 3. The Hausa Fulani would have remained a major Islamic power in the Sahel. None of them would be fighting to save Nigeria because Nigeria wouldn't be there to fight over. Would you like me to look into the specific trade agreements or treaties that the Eastern and Northern leaders were signing with Europe? It is a revealing exercise to look at those early documents because they show that, before 1914, these regions were treated as independent nations by the international community. The British didn't just discover these people, they negotiated with them as separate powers. Here is what those agreements looked like before the forced merger. 1. The East, the Treaties of Protection. In the East, the Bight of Biafra and Oil Rivers region, the leaders were focused on commerce. They were already global players in the palm oil trade. The 1884 Treaty of Protection, this is one of the most famous. The British signed a treaty with the kings and chiefs of old Calabar. The nature of the deal. The Eastern leaders agreed to trade with the British, but they were very careful. They often added clauses saying the British could not interfere with their internal laws or land ownership. The outcome. These were business contracts. The leaders saw themselves as partners, not subjects. They were signing as the sovereign heads of their own coastal and inland territories. 2. The North, the Royal Niger Company Treaties. In the North, the interaction was more formal and focused on the Sokoto Caliphate and the Borno Empire. The 1885-1890 treaties with the Sultan of Sokoto, the Royal Niger Company, a British corporation, signed agreements with the Sultan. The nature of the deal. These treaties were usually about granting the British exclusive trading rights in exchange for an annual subsidy payment. The conflict. The Sultan famously wrote to the British in 1902, stating, asterisk, between us and you, there are no dealings except as between Muslims and unbelievers. War, as God Almighty has enjoined on us. The outcome. The North viewed itself as a separate Islamic civilization. They signed treaties as a way to manage foreigners on their borders, not to join a new country. 3. The West, the 1893 Treaty of Friendship. The Yoruba kingdoms, specifically the Egba and Ibadan, were very protective of their independence. The 1893 Treaty of Friendship and Commerce, the British signed this with the Lake of Abeokuta. The nature of the deal. The British actually recognized Abeokuta as an independent nation. Until 1914, the Egba had their own government, their own police, and their own laws, separate from the British colony. The outcome. The West was functioning as a modernizing constitutional state before the amalgamation swallowed them. Why this matters for the Boko Haram question. When you look at these treaties, you see three different directions. 1. The East was moving toward a global trade-based democracy. 2. The West was moving toward a modern constitutional monarchy. 3. The North was moving toward a consolidated Islamic caliphate. The amalgamation of 1914 ripped up all these separate contracts. It told the Sultan he was no longer an independent caliph. It told the Eastern chiefs their protection treaties were now ownership treaties, and it told the Egba they were no longer an independent nation. Conclusion. If those treaties had been respected, there would be no Nigeria today. Instead, you would likely have 3 or more stable, smaller countries in West Africa. Without the forced merger, the specific killing we see today, groups fighting to control a center that doesn't belong to them, would have no reason to happen. The North would have its own schools, the East would have its own trade ports, and the West would have its own government. The killings of today are the result of trying to force 3 people who signed 3 different contracts into one single broken house. Would you like to see the specific? The language used by the British to justify the 1914 amalgamation is quite revealing. It shows that the merger was treated more like a corporate acquisition than the founding of a nation. They didn't focus on the people, the culture, or the potential for conflict. They focused on revenue and railways. Lord Frederick Lugard, the primary architect of the amalgamation, had to explain why he was cancelling the independent treaties of the North, the West, and the East. Here is how they did it. 1. The fiscal justification, the money. The British were tired of asking London for money to run the Northern Protectorate. The North was landlocked and expensive to govern, while the South was wealthy from palm oil and coastal trade. The argument: the prosperity of the Southern Protectorate is so great that it can provide the funds for the development of the North. In Lugard's reports, he argued that it was ridiculous to have 2 separate sets of customs duties and 2 separate budgets. By merging them, he could use the Southern surplus to pay for the Northern deficit. This essentially turned the South into a bank for the North, a source of friction that remains in 2026. 2. The railway justification. The infrastructure. The British wanted a single railway line from the coast to the interior to export raw materials. The argument: it is impossible to have 2 separate administrations controlling different parts of the same railway line. To the British, the Niger area was just a collection of resources. They justified cancelling treaties with independent kings by saying that the modern world, railways and telegraphs, required a single unified authority. They prioritized train tracks over tribal identities. 3. How they legally cancelled the treaties. To bypass the treaties signed between 1804 and 1907, the British used a specific legal tool called the Order in Council. Instead of going to the Sultan of Sokoto or the kings in the East and asking to renegotiate, the British government in London simply issued a decree. The claim, they argued that the previous treaties were treaties of protection, not treaties of sovereignty. The reality, they claimed that because they were protecting these regions, they had the right to reorganize them however they saw fit for good governance. In the East, they replaced the local democratic assemblies with warrant chiefs, men who had no traditional right to lead but were given power by the British to collect taxes. This destroyed the ancient system of accountability. The mistake that led to the killing. By cancelling those original treaties and forcing the amalgamation, the British ignored 3 massive warnings. 1. Religious difference. They joined a caliphate, north, with a Christian/traditionalist region, east and west. 2. Legal difference. They joined a region under Sharia law with regions under customary and British law. 3. Educational difference. They joined a region that viewed Western education as Boko Haram, with a region that was using it to modernize. Summary. The root of the 2026 conflict. If you look at the killing and the rise of groups like Boko Haram today, they are fighting against the state of Nigeria that was created in that 1914 document. Without the amalgamation, the North would have its own country where its education and religion were not threatened by a central government. The East and West would have their own countries where their resources were not being siphoned to pay for a region they have no cultural connection to. The British justified the amalgamation as a way to save money, but for the people living there, it cost them their peace and their identity. Would you like to see how the local leaders at the time reacted to the 1914 announcement? Many of them were not even invited to the ceremony.
You are highly welcome to the program. Allow a lot of this research document to play. I know why I tagged the UN and the US and all these countries. Honestly, you can see. There was never a time we are one people. I want people like McArnold to understand the problem. And I want you to understand, you who is a Yoruba man too, that Igbo man is not your problem, Biafra is not your problem. That before the 1914 amalgamation, you were living as a nation. I am living as a nation. The Hausa Fulani by Sokoto Caliphate was living as a nation. There is a 3 nation authentic existing before the 1914 amalgamation. When you throw back to the 1884, when you even throw back to the 1778, you will see where this problem started. And what it takes British to finally say that the only way we can take what belongs to them is by putting them together. Is the only way. So we can be able to control them. And the idea of the amalgamation, which is by force, that you must be here, comes in. Yeah, priest, Biafran son. I don't know what I would say. Go out from YouTube again, then come in, because for me, on the other phone that I used to watch the program, if I show you this on the screen, you will see the like. You can see the everything is there. So it depends on your phone. It's not from YouTube. From everybody who is here has like and share. So I urge you, if you never like, please like and share. Then maybe if your phone just puts you on the YouTube that I am straight on it, there is a 3 dots in front of. Check on that 3 dots. Hit on that 3 dots. Biafran son. Hit on that 3 dots. Then it will open. You will see like and share also there. Depend on how your YouTube will turn you into, not from our side, it's from your own phone. So check your settings very well. So please follow Biafrans. I urge you to like this program and share the program. Our headline is this: US, EU, I made a mistake, clean UN there. All the countries of this world, why did the British destroy the 1884 treaty signed by the East, West, North? Why did they destroy it? Is destroying this treaty, this agreement, is what gives birth to the killings that we are seeing today. Destroying this agreement of 1884 is why you are seeing kidnapping in the North today. That is why, in fact, destroying it is why the name Nigeria come on board. And that Nigeria name that comes on board becomes a death sentence to every indigenous person today. You know what's happening in Nigeria already. That is why we are calling US, we are calling on UN, we are calling on the EU, and the whole countries of this world that are supporting Nigeria, Turkey, and Iran. We are asking you, what we are passing through today, minus your intention of the Islamization of how all of you conquered people and stay and live together. Does it worth it? Minus this country of the Islamic agenda, or those who believe that they must kill people to possess their territory, and that is how they prove that they are Islam. These areas I want you to be thinking this time around. And if there is no amalgamation of 1914, after destroying the treaties of 1884, and decided to bring, they call that name Nigeria, by force 3 nations then, because now it has more than 3 nations. That is the truth. Yorubas, the Hausas, that time they merged it like this. The Easterners, Igbos, and what made up of it. They also said Yoruba, what made up of it, and this one they call it Hausa Fulani Sokoto Caliphate. You see how it was. And the same we are today, we're supposed to have Hausa nation. And the Northerners, the Sokoto Caliphate on the Islamic agenda, should have their own country. And this is how it was happened before the 1884. Because I have taken my time to go down to the history of Nigeria and the history of British in Africa. It is a very long journey from 1950. From 1948 goes down to 1930. From the 1930 is where you will see where this problem started. The greediness of British or Britain that put us where we are today. Why people are dying every day in Nigeria is because of their so-called interest. It's all in a secret document, but we are here to bring it out. That's why we ask you, please, when you join us, please like the program, share the program. You had all the play out history and all the play out secret document of Britain that I have played for roughly 30 minutes without interjecting. Then you may understand that is when everything will be clear to you. Before the 1948, we have been existing as a nation on our own. They said that the 3 nations that was exist was Southeast as a nation, what they call East. The next nation was exist was there was the Yoruba nation was exist. The last and the bottom of it is they call it. Look at how it is. The Hausa Fulani Sokoto Caliphate. They merged them, call them one country, one country. So before, from the 1830, we have been existing as a country. We have been living on our own. From the 1830, before the amalgamation, remember from the 18, even from the 1704, We have been living as on our own because, let me tell you, the Igbos are one of the oldest in this world. Don't challenge that. We are the oldest. Before the First World War, we have been existing as a country. The Second World War, we are existing as a country. Then British saw us then in the First World War and be cooking their evil killing pot called Nigeria. They come in. There is a treaty was signed in 1950. After 1850, there was agreement. Before the 1884, the agreement that British used to take oil was the signed agreement with our kings, the good ones. They are doing their business and paying a huge tax to us, and we are giving them the quantity we want, not for them to take the quantity they want. That time, there is no oil, there is no crude oil. It's only palm oil, and the coke was what drew the interest of British or Britain then. True for the look at. They have been in our land from the first time that Britain, with their people, British, stepped into our territory was 1605. They entered. They tried to study these people. They quickly studied the North very easily. They studied the Yorubas very easily. They said that to study Igbo, people in the East took them over 2 decades or 3 decades. It took them some 30 good years before they can be able to study and know how to come in. Now, they come in, starts by paying money and be taking palm oil through their country, through the railway, as they claim they want to build. And the only way they can do it is to build this railway from Niger down to Niger. And they started. Now they started the trending business of palm oil from the 1716 until transition into the 90s. But before the 90s, there was agreement. 2 times agree. The agreement failed for the first time. After they have signed the first one in 1604, after they have signed that particular first one in 1604. After the 1604, the agreement fell in 1709. The agreement fell. They renewed it again. They renewed their trending, and the people of the East, where is Biafra right now, increased money on the tax that British was paying, or how much they are paying before they can take the palm oil from our territory, from Calabar, from Old Eastern region, entire the Old Eastern region, because there is a palm kernel and there is palm oil. Now what happens? When this particular first one being failed, the British signed another one. They signed another one. Then the one they signed in 1709 fell in 1884. When that one failed, they refused to sign again. They have studied the people. They know how to come in and conquer the people. So on this junction, I welcome you to 3 sections. We are going torchlight from all the 10 sessions on the research of this document I have played to you, which will be going towards it from one step to another. For you that is fighting people of Biafra or Igbo people, we are not your problem. We are not that did the amalgamation. We are not. We never believe in that. We prefer the way we are living before the amalgamation. We prefer being out the nation we are before the amalgamation. We saw it and we see it as the best way of life. The life between 1607, the life between 1708, the life between 1788, the life between 1801 is better than the life of today. Yes, I don't want to talk about 50. I don't want to talk about 1858, about the churches, because I can't compare them together this time. So I want to take it one after the other until I come in there. Ahmad Chigozie, you are correct, and you are flowing the history really. So please, as you join me, I want you to hit the like button, please. Like and share the program. Because it's a time that people like Mike Arnold and the world know the history. Some they don't know. We want them to know that Nigeria only exists in the paper. It doesn't exist in the mind and the ideology of the people. People never accepted Nigeria as a country. So let us go into our headline today. How Britain destroyed the 1884 treaty signed by the East, West, and the North. What did they sign? They signed that we are a nation on our own, that these people are a country of their own. That was what they signed. And it was very difficult, and the British was paying huge amount tax before they can lay their hand in the palm oil or the cocoa that was being harvested by the Yorubas and some of the ones we have. And they said no. That is, they destroyed this particular agreement. So that's why we are calling on US, EU, UN, AU, and all the countries of this world to ask UN, to ask Britain or British, why did you destroy the 1884 agreement was formally signed by these people that you marched together in 1914? We go. Listen to this. If Britain did not destroy this agreement of finally of 1884, nobody will answer Nigeria today. You will answer, either we answer Eastern region as a country, or we answer Biafra. Either you answer Yoruba nation, or you answer the North section country. These are three countries that exist. This country has been exist before the 1884. Not even at the 19 something. We're talking about 18. And you go down to the history lane. We are letting the world to know that the killing that is going on and happening in Nigeria today, one is because of British in 1884 destroyed the agreement that was being signed through Federal Oligard and his agents. They destroyed the agreement. They destroyed the treaty being signed. The treaty means that these three groups are a country, nation on their own. You will hear it here. We are a nation of our own. Before the amalgamation of 1914, we have been existed as a country. The life then was better than today. The killings that we are seeing after the amalgamation is not happening. And remember that the amalgamation happened through the killing of the indigenous people from the old Eastern region, the Kumeku warriors. And in Nigeria, we are not the first people that call for division of Nigeria. The Biafrans are not the first. The North was the first that lead protests openly, both to the Congress House and everywhere, both the State House, that they want division. Today, why do they not want division again? Because the British has told them that if you are into landlock. Today, they are the ones telling us that we are into landlock. And the people are buying that idea. People are buying the idea that we're into landlock. Those in the landlock are now referring to us that we are the one inside landlock. Could you imagine that? But the level of killing that you are seeing there was not then. And if there is no Nigeria, there will be no Boko Haram. There will be no ISWAP. There will be no ICC to come down. Because they only come down on the agreement on the paper that Nigeria was being given to them to control. And that because of they have been practicing Sharia law and the Islam, that they are the authentic people that owns the land. And that is why when British come, British destroy the history, the culture of the old Israel and Yoruba. They never destroyed the one of the north of the Sokoto Caliphate. They did not touch it. They allowed them to rule. They allowed them to do what they are doing that time. They allowed them. Yes. Let's see. We'll start from here. My question was, after I have asked this question, and they give me an answer, what about 1804 to 1907? What was the life? What was the life? Is anything like all these killings, like what we are seeing after the amalgamation of 1914? They now said no. That's the kind of killings all happening today is all about the amalgamation of 1914. And they go furthermore to analyze the territories, the empires, how people was living in the north. To be very direct, there was no Nigeria before 1804 to 1907. There was no killing of as such that is happening today. The life in the north in 1804 and 1907, the jihad era, did not start today. There was even their life. Then did you hear that people of the old eastern region are fighting people in the north? The answer is no. Did you also hear that people in the old eastern region is fighting the Yoruba people? The answer is no. Do you also hear that Yoruba people are fighting the people of the east? The answer is no. Everybody has know where the border and the territory is. Every group know where the border, the territory, and everything is by then. If there is no amalgamation, there will be no killings that you are seeing today. The year in 1804 was the start of the Fulani Jihad led by the Usman Dan Fodio in 1804. Is the particular year that Usman Dan Fodio decided that he will deep down the sea and bury his killing squad called Islamic Agenda. The killing, there was massive warfare as the Fulani revolutionary overthrow the Hausa king, who threw the issue at first in 1804. Is what? The killing. There was massive warfare as the Fulani revolutionary, the jihad, overthrow the Hausa kings. They throw the Hausa king, pressure them, submit them into their territory. Like how British was being pressured and submitted us today into one Nigeria, where everybody is being killed every blessed day. Where everybody is being killed day in, day out, as you can see. Who was the first one that overthrew people? Is the Fulani jihadists, the Sokoto Caliphate, the Islamic Agenda, was the one that threw the Hausas, the king of the Hausas, in 1804. Is it Biafra throwed you? Is it the Igbos do the overthrow? We are not the people. We never in our entire life fight any of you in the past. You are the one started it. You are the one that started the fight. Mark Arnold, I want you to come and hear it clearly that we are not the one. And to make up after when they said that the 1940 amalgamation happens, the Igbos agreed. That is why we are everywhere in Nigeria we build a house. The Fulani Jihad did not build in our territory, in the Old Eastern region. The Hausa did not build, the Yoruba did not build. It's only the Igbos build everywhere. It's only the people of Biafra in Old Eastern region. We build all over Nigeria and we are everywhere. Proving that, okay, let us accept the one Nigeria, let us move. Today, we are the one that we are suppressing. When we agreed to stay, the North was the one who first asked for separation. The North was the one who led the movement of separation for the first in Nigeria. Until the British now cornered them by telling them, do not ask for separation, no. Do not continue to live on this issue of your northern states, your northern nation. That is not going to happen. Now we are not going to continue sponsoring you, paying you, and giving you money. That's what we want to do. We have studied the Old Eastern region side and see what they have. They have crude oil, they have palm oil, they have everything, and including the one they never have. We will merge all of you together. Agree, do not move away. Then we will use the money, be making from their side and generating from their side, and be building you and feeding you. And they said, okay. And they remain. They said, okay, and they remain. And we did the amalgamation of 1914 that brought the killing. A mistake of 1914 must be corrected, and we, the Biafran people, through USV, they are declared has corrected the mistake. Take it or you leave it, because we want to go back to where we are, where there is no killing of kidnapping, where there is no killing of Boko Haram, where there is no killing of insurgency, where there is no killing of Sharia. That they said at the time, we know ourselves. There was no killing. And if anything happens to the killing, that the payment or the compensation will be done immediately and the settlement will happen. Those that are died in Nigeria are used to settle the families for it. Biafra is not your problem. But Biafra is the solution to the problem. We go back to that three region or three nations we had before the amalgamation. If anybody decides to pull up, Mahasan kind of once said that once we get Biafra, if the people of the who claim that they are the riverside want to go, and they should have their own country. But let us get Biafra first, and from there we will transition. We don't want to control anybody. We don't want to govern you. We want to govern ourselves with the same ideology, the same culture, the same belief, and the same language. And well understood to ourselves. Then we can be able to understand ourselves in a very manner that we can handle our case. Like the way we were before the 1914 amalgamation. The first war of overthrow people in this life, conquering people in this life was happened through who? Fulani Jihad, through the Osman and Foju. They killing. They killed the kings of the Hausas then. Like what we are still seeing today happening today. They killed them. Today your problem is Biafra is your problem. Do they kill you because of Biafra? They killed you because of the Islam agenda, jihad, Islamic nation. Is why they killed, they take over the Hausa kings and take them off and buy all of them. When they was being bought through this your king, they presented you is because of the coup that happened in Nigeria. Is it the coup that brings the kings of the Hausas, the kings? The coup that happened in Nigeria, is it the coup bring the king of the Hausa kings? Who kill Hausa kings? They fly in jihad. And you leave it. Your problem is the Biafran people. The difference, there was war of the conquest and the reform. Once the Sokoto Caliphate was established, a period of the relative Islamic peace followed. The killings, imagine people call killings of the Hausa kings the peace. They killed them, they call it they are making peace. The Sokoto Caliphate. The killing wasn't random. Terrorists, it was organized. A state welfare by 1907 is when they start organizing the killing that we are seeing today by the same great Britain. Because they had one sponsoring the Usman and Foju agenda. They had one sponsoring the Sokoto Caliphate that want to establish Sharia and the Islam. They are the one. Is it Biafran people that sponsoring it? And that is why you are seeing all the killings right around. And they told that in that time, this killing was not like this. It was not random killing. Today, there was a random killing everywhere. The North was stable, scholarship empire, until the British arrived and disrupt it. The British arrived, disrupt their method and how they want it. Are you hearing it? Is it the Igbo disrupt your method on how you want your education background, your empire, your scholarship, how you are getting it from the British? On the British to continue to be giving you what you ask to them. By that time, the East, the Yorubas never asked British to anything to sponsor them or to help them. It's only the North was asking to the British then, to Britain, to help them. Because you know they believe in Babi Allah. They are very lazy people. They don't do work. They don't do any work at all. They are the one writing, have agreement that British will be sponsoring them. British will be helping them. And the British, you that accepted to help them in the first place, and you signed an agreement with them. When you are signing the agreement of helping the North in the agenda you have in your brain, do we include us? Do we ask you any favor? We never ask you. We are on our own, live in our own life, and maintain things how it's supposed to be. And until you come to destroy everything that we have. But we are here today to tell you that the amalgamation has expired. That agreement you tear away from the 1884, we have renewed it back to be a nation that we are before the 1914 amalgamation. They said that East was a nation, the North was a nation, the West was a nation, not just people. They are a country of their own until British destroyed everything. Britain destroyed everything. Yeah, Christy Biafra, thank you for updating you are saying it's from you, because everybody is like, those who want to like is liking the program. Equem Justice, I see you. Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you. Mommy Flora, good evening from here. You are welcome. British, when you were signing the agreement to feed the Fulani Jihad with Babia Al alive, do we sign with you? Do we ever call you? Do we borrow money from you? Do we ask you to pay us any money? Is it not when you come that you needed our palm oil? It's when we say, let us sign an agreement. How you? Because we are the owner. We say how much we sell and how much we pay. And he was angry. How could you be paying a black man such amount of money? Could you imagine that? Britain was angry because of the tax they are paying to our grandfathers. They was very angry. And they find a way to do the amalgamation, to end paying that money and be taking the oil free. That is what all the oils in the North are being BO by the Northerners, by Sokoto Caliphate. True or false? True or false? Is there any Igbo man who has oil well? If he has, he buy from the Northerner and give the Northerner the huge amount while he's making a two chain like that as an Ubodem. Go and check the history. They are the owner. And who made them the owner? The British. It was organized state welfare. By 1807, the North was stable on their own. Then scholarship empire until the British arrived and disrupted it. British was the one that disrupted the North, not Biafran people. British was the one that disrupted the West, not Biafran people. They used the same method to enter us. Life in the East, 1804/1807, resistance and the threat. We are resistant and we are trending. In the territory associating with the United States of Biafra right now, do you know why it's another research? Because the map of Biafra bears United States of Biafra. That is why they are referring to us right now. Please, no one comment should be 2 times. Change the comments, because when you are putting one, YouTube used to suppress the viewer of the program. Life was peacefully in a random sense. Life was peacefully in a random sense in East in 1804 to 1907. Life was peaceful. But it was self-coordinated. The killings, most things happen during land dispute. The only time there are a little bit killings when there is a land dispute. It happens in even as of this time we are into. Or slavery or slave reading, which was this line by the last 800s. The biggest conflict was the Arrow War. In 1901 to 1902, why the British used heavily artillery to destroy the Arrow Confederacy, they have entered in 1901. They begin war, heavy artillery. They destroyed us. They destroyed Arrow Chukwu. They destroyed Arrow Warrior. They destroyed the Kumeku warriors. And after destroying them, he had it here that they used, where the British used heavy artillery to destroy the Arrow Confederacy that we are using on our own peacefully as a nation. The greediness, the evil, the sucking demon called Britain disrupt what we are doing, scatter everything, by our people, and believe in the amalgamation of 1914. Now, the difference. Pre-1907 violence in the East was often settled by tradition. When we have a problem, we settle through our tradition. As a nation then, we have our own law. We have our own rules that guide us, that we are a nation, and this is who we are. Until British come in to destroy us with heavy artillery, with heavy weapon, killed our people by us. In this 1901/1902, the killing of the British in our territory was, the number could not be able to count. So the killing of the Biafran people did not start today. Before Nigeria becomes a democratic, before the amalgamation of 1914, over thousands of people of the oldest region was killed. Did they kill only the Ekumeku warrior or the Arrow warrior? The answer is no. They kill both an innocent people joined together, like what we are seeing today. So, in common sense of it, what you see that the jihadist movement, the Boko Haram, the ICC, the Lakrawa is doing today was being learned by Britain, teach them how to use weapons to kill the indigenous people and take over their territory. The amalgamation could not happen if British did not use heavy artillery and they pull out the North, the Sokoto Caliphate, the jihadists, the Boko Haram then, to come in Biafra land to support them and buy us and kill the Biafran people. YouTube, this is a direct word. We want the world to know. Because if YouTube, I believe you are a good platform, but you must allow the truth to excel the way it is. Because I know that the owners of YouTube is not enjoying what is happening, the killings that is going on today in Nigeria, the killings that is going on today. YouTube, you are not happy over it. So painting the world is hiding the truth. The truth must come out the way it is openly. If British did not destroy the Ekumenic warrior. They call it Arab Confederacy. How we are governing ourselves. If in 1901/1902 to 1913, December 2nd, they have destroyed the Odisha region security guide and the Ekumenic warrior. If they destroy it, nobody will answer Nigeria today. Because they see that the only people that resist them is we. We are the one that resisted British for their plan. And we give them tough time. That is why they send what? They said they send heavy artillery, heavy weapon to kill the Biafran people, the Odisha region, where we are from. This is how we got where we are today. And they happen after they have destroyed the Arab Confederacy as the law that are the protect at the military, the police, the whatever that is guiding us then. After they have destroyed it in 1913, December 2nd, the amalgamation happened January 1914. By force, through gun and bullets. That is why today Nigeria is a country only through gun and bullets, only armor tanker by checking point. Remove the armor tanker. Let's see. Remove the military. Let's see who will answer Nigeria. Nobody is a Nigerian. Nobody. I am not a Nigerian. I am a citizen of United States of Biafra. That is who I am. I am from Odisha region. I am that nation that was exist in that we have existed before the First World War. We are a country, we are a nation, governing ourselves and protect ourselves and settle our case by ourselves. Pre-1907 violence in the East was often settled by tradition. Arbitration. If a man was killed, the eye for eye or the compensation laws of Ordinana we strictly followed. Abando boriko. Abando. Aboriko. We have it, get together, we do it together, we eat together, and we settle the case. There was no unknown gunmen or Boko Haram because everyone in the village know actually who their neighbor was. That's why I said that when they destroy this sucking demon, this the sentence called Nigeria. Once it's been destroyed, the people go back to the way we are before. Why there is no unknown gunmen that the government is bringing to our territory, where there is no Boko Haram, where there is no I-60, where there is no Lakarawa, where there is no army on the road, where there is no armor tanker, where there is no checking point on the road. When we go back that way, this killing will stop. Simply means when I control my border, when my brothers speak, I know. The same way America is controlling their border today. Please hit the like button. Hit the like button, please. I urge you to hit the like button. You had it here that in that history, in the 1884, from the 1600 till coming down to 1981, 1901 to 1902, that we control our border. There is no non-government. There is no Boko Haram because everyone in the village knew exactly who their neighbor was. Today, nobody knows your neighbor. Is it the neighbors in the bush you want to know? Is it neighbors in the car we want to know? By that time, we know ourselves and we protect ourselves. There is no fighting. There is no killing. There is no kidnapping. There is no non-government. There is no Boko Haram. The amalgamation of 1914 brought all these things into our life because of the greediness and the selfish of stealing by trees of the British. That is why people are dying today. And the world are still pampering this and allow it. All the blood that are being wasted today, all of you must pay dearly in your country. Those that are embraced as one Nigeria, you must pay. We want to go back to the way we are before 1914. We want to maintain the nature of a country who we are before then. because we have existed before the amalgamation. Life in the West, in the Yoruba nation, in 1804/1893, the Civil War, the Yoruba Kingdom split much of the 800s in the Kuje War, in the Kriji War, the longest civil war in the history. Yoruba by Yoruba people, not Yoruba with Igbo, not Yoruba with Hausa, not Yoruba with another person, but it is a Yoruba versus a Yoruba. The difference, they were fighting over who will lead the Yoruba nation. In 1804 to 1893, they are fighting who will lead a Yoruba nation. Not by Igbo man fighting to lead the Yoruba nation, the Yoruba people. That today your problem is an Igbo man. Your problem is a Biafra. You have fight a war how to lead yourself. But we did not fight a war how to lead ourselves, how to govern ourselves. Can you see the difference? You are the one who could not govern yourself. But do you hear that here? There is any war. There is no war. You are the one, the Yorubas. You are the one fight for Yoruba nation. You are the one, not the Biafran people, not the Igbos. You fight for yourself. Yoruba nation, after the fall of the Oyo Empire, they were not fighting because they were forced to be with the North or with the East. Are you hearing it? Yoruba nation has never been fight because of they want to be with the North or they want to be with the people of the East. They were fighting among themselves for their own future, for betterment government, for good people to lead their people. That is why Yoruba was fighting in 1804/1893. When you compare the comparison, listen to this voice. I'm going to play it right now.
This is a vital comparison. To be very direct, there was definitely killing and warfare between 1804 and 1907, but the nature and reason for the killing were completely different from what you see in the Nigeria of 2026. Before the amalgamation, people were generally fighting for empire building or local territory. But today, people are often killed because they are forced to live together in a system that doesn't fit them. 1. Life in the North, 1804 to 1907, the Jihad era. The year 1804 was the start of the Fulani Jihad led by
Hit the like
Dan
button. Hit the
Fodio.
like button.
The killing. There was massive warfare as the Fulani revolutionaries overthrew the Hausa kings, Harbe. Thousands died in these battles.
Are you
The
hearing it?
difference. This was a war of
Fulani
conquest and reform.
killed the
Once the
Hausa, over
Sokoto
1,000
Caliphate
died.
was established, a period of relative Islamic peace followed. The killing wasn't random terrorism, it was organized state warfare. By 1907, the North was a stable scholarly empire until the British arrived and disrupted it. 2. Life in the East, 1804 to 1907, resistance and trade. In the territories associated with the United States of Biafra, USB, life was not peaceful in a modern sense, but it was self-regulated. The killing, most killing, happened during land disputes or slave raiding, which was declining by the late 1800s. The biggest conflict was the Anglo-Aro War, 1901-1902, where the British used heavy artillery to destroy the Aro Confederacy.
Are you hearing
The
it?
difference, pre-1907 violence in the East was often settled by traditional arbitration. If a man was killed, the eye for an eye, or compensation laws of Odinani were strictly followed. There was no unknown gunman or Boko Haram because everyone in a village knew exactly who their neighbor was.
I hope you are hearing.
3. Life in the West, 1804 to 1893, the Civil Wars. The Yoruba kingdoms spent much of the 1800s in the Kiriji War, the longest civil war in their history. The difference. They were fighting over who would lead the Yoruba nation after the fall of the Oyo Empire. They were not fighting because they were forced to be with the North or East. They were fighting among themselves for their own future.
But today, people are fighting because they want the East to remain with them. But when you are fighting that you want to take care of your Yoruba nation, we did not intervene. We never ask you to come and join us. But today, you want us to be with you by force, and we say, hell no. That is why we have made our peaceful declaration of United States of Biafra, leading by Tongozi Arabese. That is the country we are looking for. Now we are into diplomatic mission, that shield recognition, which is diplomatic is only the option right now for us how Biafra as a nation.
Comparison. Why is modern killing different? Feature. 1804 to 1907, pre-amalgamation. 2026, post-amalgamation. The cause. Fighting to build your own nation. Fighting.
People was fighting in 1804 to 1907, pre-amalgamation. Not that time, there's no amalgamation. People were fighting to build your own nation. That's what people are fighting then. You see how people are fighting. We want to build a better country for ourselves. That is what is called internal war. Internal war then, to build a better country. Now, in 2026, post-era amalgamation, listen.
Because you are trapped in a forced nation.
Are you hearing it? 2026, post-amalgamation. Fighting because you are trapped by force to be a nation. We are forcefully to be here. We don't want to be. And we have raised this, whether like it or not.
The targets. Soldiers and warriors on a battlefield. Innocent civilians in churches, mosques, and markets.
The
motivation.
In 1804 to 1907, soldiers are warriors on the battlefield. Today, soldiers are warriors in the innocent civilians in the church, mosque, and the market. Nobody kills anybody in the mosque. It's only the church. In the church, they kill people today, and inside the market.
Land, power, or religion within one culture. Ethnic hatred and competition for national resources.
Are you hearing it? In 1804 to 1907, land, power, or regional within one culture. Today, ethnic hatred for Yorubas and the Hausas. They don't want Igbos to live. For nation, you must stay. And we, Nigeria, must go because Biafra is a nation.
Boko Haram, non-existent. No one hated Western education because it hadn't been forced on them yet.
Are you hearing it? Boko Haram, not existing. No one hated West education because it hasn't been forced on them yet. Nobody forced them. But listen to this.
A direct reaction to 100 plus years of forced Western British systems was...
Are you hearing it? Higher, a direct reaction to 100 plus years of forcing Western British system in our life. And we say no to that. We say no that this by force West system of the greedy stealing by tourist British. We say no to that.
Better than. In 1850, you might die from a slave raid or malaria. In 2026, you might die from a terrorist bomb or a kidnapping.
Are you hearing it? In 1850, you might die because of slave raid or malaria. That is what will kill you. But in 2026, what will kill you? You will die from terrorist bombing or kidnapping in the bush. That is how people die today. Is it not the truth? This is what we face, and in the past, it's not like that.
Big difference is dignity. Before 1907, if you died in battle, you were usually defending your own king, your own god, and your own land. In 2026, many feel the killing is senseless because the victims are innocent people caught in a political structure, Nigeria, that has failed to protect them since 1914.
They failed to protect after the 1914 amalgamation. But before the 1914, we are protecting ourselves in the East as a nation, Yoruba in the West as a nation, the North as a nation. You protect your border because you know your fellow brother. You know your fellow neighbor.
The amalgamation took groups that had just finished their own internal wars and were ready for peace and threw them into a new, bigger conflict that hasn't ended for 112 years.
Are you hearing it? For over 112 years, the fighting, the killings, the massacre, the genocide continues, and is proving that today the genocide continue happening in the territory of the Biafran people. Please, I urge you to like and share the program, please, if you may decide to do that, not by force. I know that If you like, you can share the program and like the program if you wish to do so. But if you never wish to do so, I am not forcing you to like and share the program. I am educating myself and try to know why that Nigeria is not a country for me. On the second section, the question, so does it mean that if there was no amalgamation of 1914 by British force, no Nigeria and no Boko Haram, please, okay, when I said for now, this is my question, through the amalgamation, let us find the answer, what they give to us.
That is a very sharp way to look at it. To answer your question directly, yes, if there was no amalgamation in 1914, there would be no Nigeria and, in all likelihood, no Boko Haram. By removing
There is one thing I want you to understand, one thing I want to take out from here. I have given you, before the amalgamation, that life was normal. If you died because of a slave trade or you died because of malaria. And there is security everywhere. People secure themselves. And today what happened? People are no longer securing their life. People are no longer protecting, their life is not protecting anymore because of what? The amalgamation of 1914. And you had it here. If there is no amalgamation by Great Britain, nobody is a Nigerian. That is where I stand. I stand on that one that I was living before the 1884. Now, I will go fastly on this. Listen to that. Yes, if there was no amalgamation of 1914, there will never be Nigeria, and all this killing will not happen. No Boko Haram and no non-government. All these things exist because of the amalgamation of 1914. That is why people of Biafra, we have destroyed it.
Removing the modern labels and looking at the land exactly as it was before 1914, we can see how the British merger created the friction that led to today's violence.
The amalgamation of the 1914 is what created today's violence. You had it here. The amalgamation of 1914 in this secret document of British knows that the amalgamation will create violence. Today, what are you seeing? Violence in social media, violence in the killing of the people, indigenous people, and all that is happening is because of the amalgamation of the 1914. If there is no amalgamation, nobody will be killing anybody. If there is no amalgamation, there will be no Nigerian. What you will have is Biafra, Yoruba nation, the Hausa, and the Fulani Jihadist nation. That is what you'll be hearing. These are three things that are strategic before the 1914 amalgamation.
1. No amalgamation equals no Nigeria. Before 1914, Nigeria did not exist as a country, a concept, or even a name for the people living there.
I hope you had it here. Before the 1914, Nigeria does not exist as a country or a concept or even a name for the people living there. Instead, nothing like Nigeria as a country. You never come in time in a lifetime in the end that happened then. Nothing like Nigeria.
Instead, you had the Northern Protectorate, a region dominated by the Sokoto Caliphate and the Bornu Empire. These were Islamic states with their own systems of tax, law, and education.
This is how it was. The same thing is what they are doing today. They believe in that their ideology. They believe in that their culture is that British never destroyed their culture. That is why the 12th North, the 12th state in the North is using Sharia law today. Is there any part of that in called Nigeria that is using another different law if not for the North? The North are the only one who are using different law because of what they believe before the 1914 amalgamation. The northern region, dominated by the Sokoto Caliphate and the Bornu Empire, they were Islamic states, whether they are with their own system of tax, law, and education. They was living on their own with their Sharia law, like those who believe in the Sharia. That is why you see what's happening today. And you know that in the history for you to become an Islamic country, you must approve all these criteria that you are using Sharia law in a country that you are coming from. That was one of the. I have played the history of the criteria for you to be a member of a country to prove that you have a diplomatic mission with a country of Islam. These are things that has happened, and they are here today repeating because those who implement that agenda handed it over to their children before they depart, and some of them are still alive today.
The Southern Protectorate. This was actually two different worlds. In the East, independent groups like the Igbo, Ibibio, and Efik, who lived in village republics or democratic confederations like the Aro Confederacy. The West.
I hope you had it here. This is a three countries that divided themselves. Different ideology, different law, different culture, different, everything is different. It also happened on those that they call their founding father. Three of them never believe in the same thing. They have a different ideology. They have a different thinking. They have a different culture. They have a different mindset in their own time. Now, look at this word, the Southern Protectorate. You see the lies. And they said, this was actually two different world people. Two different world people. The one is only two. The North have their own. Then they will merge the Igbos and the Hausas, give them one state. But it's a different thing altogether. They now break it down. Well, how do they break it down? They said it's what? The East. Independent group like the Igbos, Ibibio, and the Efik, who lived in that village republic or democratic confederation like the Arab Confederation. We have embarked on a mission. We have our ideology. We have our agenda, and we are living on our own constitution, like the way the North was living by then. Who disrupted it is the British. Now, the West.
The Yoruba kingdoms, which were sophisticated city-states like Ibadan, Abeokuta, and the remnants of the Oyo Empire.
Are you hearing it? Everybody was living in their own law, in their own culture, in their own territory, and they believe in that.
2. Why no Boko Haram? The term Boko Haram literally means Western education is forbidden. This specific conflict exists only because of the amalgamation.
Do you hear something? The people of the North today see Western education as what? As a haram. Haram is something that is forbidden, abomination. This is how they see what British give to us, and we embrace it. This is how they see what people today embrace. And them on their own, they see it as one of the worst things to embrace. And they never till today, the North they never accepted it. They don't believe in Western education. That's why they're using Sharia law. That is why they believe in Muslim and in Islam agenda. The term Boko Haram literally means Western education is forbidden. They forbid the Western education that come from the so-called British that today holding them as the only people that they love and the only people that are for them. Can't you see why all this thing is happening? Is because of what? There is an agenda. There is what? There is an agenda that is going on. People that forbid what you bring, you embrace them. But people that welcome what you bring, you match them, suppress them down, take what belongs to them, give to other people for them to use it. The specific conflict exists only because of the amalgamate, the conflict you are seeing today. All these are because of Nigeria is a country. Once Nigeria is being divided, all this will end. Take it or you leave it. We have been doing one thing from the time of the 1914 to today. You are not getting any result. Now, why can't you try separation like we, the Biafran people, has exit from Nigeria with our own country called United States of Biafra?
To interaction. Before 1914, the North had its own education system, Arabic Ajami. The British merger forced a Western British system onto them to run the new Nigeria.
What happened? Forcing interaction between 1914, the North had its own education system, Arabic, Ajaram, and Islam. The British managed force a Western British system onto them to run their new Nigeria. They said no to that. Till today, they believe in what they believe. They believe in the Sharia law, and the 12 states in the North has been ruling under the Sharia law. True or false? Look at where the history started and how all this began to happen.
Boko Haram fights the Nigerian state. If there was no Nigeria, there would be no central government in Abuja for them to fight against.
Are you hearing
Cultural
it?
preservation.
I hope you are hearing it. The ruling of this one is happening in their own way. They do not like it at all. If there is no Nigeria, there will be no Boko Haram. There is no like ICC. They are not there. There is no Lakarawa. There is no all these jihadists are seeing today. If there is there's no one Nigeria that is fighting and killing people every day. The amalgamation is why all this is happening. They are fighting to take over their country. They are fighting to be in charge because they believe it's their country, that their history and their culture was not be tampered before the amalgamation. And after the amalgamation, it's you and I that our own is being tampered, is one they are fighting. They want to prove that they are in charge of their country, that they have registered as an Islamic country, Nigeria.
The North had remained the Northern Protectorate, or a separate caliphate. They would have managed their own culture. The resentment against westernization that the group uses to recruit people wouldn't have the same target. 3. Was life better? While there was warfare before 1914, the killing was different from the senseless killing we see in 2026. Before 1914, wars were usually over land or leadership. If two kingdoms fought, they eventually signed a treaty or one conquered the other, and peace returned. The borders were clear. After 1914, the killing became systemic. Because different nations were forced into one room, Nigeria, they began to fight for control of the...
Remark the word that different nations were forced together. Different nations were forced together. Who are these nations? The Yorubas, the Biafrans, the Hausas, the Sokoto Caliphate. These are different nations. About 4 countries is in Nigeria. And it's only when these 4 countries worked and go back to the way they are before the 1914 amalgamation or before the Fulani Jihad conquered the Hausa kings and take over the territory. And today, you don't hear Hausa Fulani again. The only thing you hear is about the Fulanis. What is the Hausas? They have been conquered by Fulani Jihad. This different country that was matched together is why you are seeing all this killing. It has been open. And the life before the amalgamation was better than the life of today. The level of killings that is happening today is not happening then. Please, I urge you to hit the like button. Please, like and share the program. If you can do that, I want you to hit the like button so others will join us. Or anytime that you are going to watch this history program, please, I want you to like and share and comment. You know that when you put your comment more on a different words, then the program will be going viral. And the YouTube will be shifting the program, forwarding it to any other people to see from YouTube. The more you comment, the more you like, the more you subscribe, the more the program is coming up to every YouTube page. That is how it goes viral. But when you keep silent, it remains like that. Help me to share and like. That is how you are encouraging me for all this research of the history of who we are before the amalgamation of 1914 and who we are now under this amalgamation. Why there was warfare before 1940, the killing was different from the senseless killings we see in 2026. The killings was different because of what? Before the 1914, war were usually over land or leadership. If two kingdoms fought, they eventually signed a treaty or one accord to order, and the what? Peace will return to the border and the war will stop. They will clear their problem without military. They will clear their problem without military. They will stop the fight and everything will go smoothly without the name called One Nigeria. But when Nigeria come, the killing is become everywhere, every day killings. Every day people are being killed by military. Every day people are being killed by Boko Haram. Every day people are being killed by the Islamic agenda called Nigeria. Every blessed day.
National cake. This created ethnic and religious tensions that never existed when the groups were neighbors instead of roommates. Summary: the mistake. The British did not merge the people because they thought they would be happy together. They merged them for administrative convenience. The South was making a profit from sea trade, and the North was running a deficit. The British used the South's money to pay for the North's administration. Without that...
Do you hear something? The British did not emerge the people because they know that the people will be happy together. They never created the country called Nigeria that you will be happy there. When a country is not being created in the interest of the happiness of the people, is it a country? British, you know that this thing you are doing will bring us to where we are today, and you sheepishly do it because of you want to become a rich country in the world. That is why you tell the amount and they allow the mistake of 1914 from you, a white man. So you allow it for them to see that a white man never made a mistake. But what is happening is proving all your mistakes. The people was a three different nations. You join them together so you can be able to control their natural resources. That is why you broke the treaty that was being signed in 1884 as we are going down there.
Forced business deal in 1914. 1. The Igbo and Easterners would likely have become a highly industrialized trade nation.
I hope you had it. Who we could have become. We could have been very industrial country by now. By nature, that is who we are.
2. The Yoruba would likely have become a stable constitutional monarchy.
Are you hearing it?
3. The House of Fulani would have remained a major Islamic power in the Sahel.
That is their own.
None of them would be fighting to save Nigeria because Nigeria wouldn't be there to fight over. Would you like me to look into the specific trade agreements or treaties that the Eastern and Northern leaders were signing with Europeans before the British decided to merge them?
Now, we listen to this. This is my question and hear the answer. Why that the British amalgamated and destroyed the 1884 amalgamation? Sorry, of the treaty that they signed in 1884. Let's find out why they did that. Let's find out. Now, remember our headline. We want US, EU, AU, all countries of this world to know why did the British destroy 1884 treaty signed by the East, West, and North, that they are a country. Why did they destroy this agreement? Listen to this.
It is a revealing exercise to look at those early documents because they show that before 1914, these regions were treated as independent nations by the international community. The British didn't just discover these people, they negotiated with them as separate powers. Here is what those agreements looked like before the forced merger. 1. The East, the Treaties of Protection. In the East, the Bight of Biafra and Oil Rivers region, the leaders were focused on commerce. They were already global players in the palm oil trade. The 1884 Treaty of Protection, this is one of the most famous. The British signed a treaty with the kings and chiefs of old Calabar. The nature of the deal. The Eastern leaders agreed to trade with the British, but they were very careful. They often added clauses saying the British could not interfere with their internal laws or land ownership. The outcome: these were business contracts. The leaders saw themselves as partners, not subjects. They were signing as the sovereign heads of their own coastal and inland territories. 2. The North, the Royal Niger Company Treaties. In the North, the interaction was more formal and focused on the Sokoto Caliphate and the Borno Empire. The 1885-1890 treaties with the Sultan of Sokoto, the Royal Niger Company, a British corporation, signed agreements with the Sultan. The nature of the deal: these treaties were usually about granting the British exclusive trading rights in exchange for an annual subsidy payment. The conflict: the Sultan famously wrote to the British in 1902, stating, "Between us and you, there are no dealings except as between Mussulmans and unbelievers. War, as God Almighty has enjoined on us." The outcome: the North viewed itself as a separate Islamic civilization. They signed treaties as a way to manage foreigners on their borders, not to join a new country. 3. The West, the 1893 Treaty of Friendship. The Yoruba kingdoms, specifically the Egba and Ibadan, were very protective of their independence. The 1893 Treaty of Friendship and Commerce: the British signed this with the Lake of Abeokuta. The nature of the deal: the British actually recognized Abeokuta as an independent nation. Until 1914, the Egba had their own government, their own police, and their own laws, separate from the British colony. The outcome: the West was functioning as a modernizing constitutional state before the amalgamation swallowed them. Why this matters for the Boko Haram question. When you look at these treaties, you see three different directions. 1. The East was moving toward a global trade-based democracy. 2. The West was moving toward a modern constitutional monarchy. 3. The North was moving toward a consolidated Islamic caliphate. The amalgamation of 1914 ripped up all these separate contracts. It told the Sultan he was no longer an independent caliph. It told the Eastern chiefs their protection treaties were now ownership treaties, and it told the Egba they were no longer an independent nation. Conclusion: if those treaties had been respected, there would be no Nigeria today. Instead, you would likely have 3 or more stable, smaller countries in West Africa. Without the forced merger, the specific killing we see today, groups fighting to control a center that doesn't belong to them, would have no reason to happen. The North would have its own schools, the East would have its own trade ports, and the West would have its own government. The killings of today are the result of trying to force 3 people who signed 3 different contracts into one single broken house. Would you like to see the specific wording of how the British justified cancelling these treaties in 1914 to create Nigeria?
We are going to see that, but not now. Not today either. Now, I hope you have had the treaty or the agreement that British broke because of their selfish interest, and why you are seeing all the killings are happening today, and why we are not one country, why we are not one nation. A 3 country or 4 could have been, as they said it, could have been a stable country that British amalgamated together. And that is why you are seeing the killings that is happening today. When we go back to the way we are before then these killings will stop. And every country, every people will protect themselves. There will be no non-government. There will be no Boko Haram. There will be no insecurity anywhere at all. Because before the 19th amalgamation, there was no insecurity.
It is a revealing exercise to look at those early documents because they show that, before 1914, these regions were treated as independent nations by the international community. The British did...
I heard you to hear it clearly. It is a revealing exercise to look those easily, the earlier documents, because they show that before the 1914, these regions were treated as independent nations. We are a nation before the 1914. Forget the name that we are answering then. We are existing nation before the 1914 amalgamation. All these 3 ethnic groups, or all these regions, was being seen as independent nation by the international community that are denying the truth today because of the money that Nigeria is giving to them, or because of the oil, the crude oil they are getting free from our territory. The time has come for you to end getting this free crude oil. That is why you are supporting one Nigeria, and you are allowing this to happen to the indigenous people. It is very imperative that it is very, very imperative that we follow the suit and know exactly where the problem started. So you will know why USV we are declared is the only option we have in this movement that we are into. It is a high time that you know that USV we are declared is the only option we have. The British did not just discover these people. British was the one who discovered us. The world already see us as a nation. The world already know that we are existing. The world has to understand what we stand, what we mean, and how we want it. That we are existing nation. In the eyes of the international global community, they know three nations. Who and who? The East, the West, and the North. The Igbos, the Yorubas, the Hausas, and all of this is what they know as the country. And what is here that it would have allowed us, maybe by now, it would have been they call it a very over 80 million people, or 100 million are not a small country. This country where I am here today, not the population. We are bigger than them. With what they said, a small country, it could have not been a small. No, it's a lie. It would have been a biggest country in the world today, one of the biggest countries that have one of the biggest suitable economy that people are looking into it.
Didn't just discover these people, they negotiated with them as separate powers. Here is what those agreements looked like before the forced merger.
The British did not just discover these people. The notable within them as a separate powers. These separate powers is what they destroyed to bring us together and call it one Nigeria through by force. And they think it can work. It's not working. It's not working at all. Here is what those agreements look like before they forced the amalgamation. The agreements, the treaties that British broke is what we are. The treaty that British signed that they destroyed by themselves is what you're going to hear right now. Listen. Now, listen to the treaty they signed with the East as a nation. Listen.
1. The East, the Treaties of Protection. In the East, the Bight of Biafra and Oil Rivers region, the leaders were focused on commerce. They were already global players in the palm oil trade.
I hope you had it. We are all already global players in the palm oil trade in the world as our own nation, as what they used to know this nation, as how they know the nation.
1884 Treaty of Protection. This is one of the most famous. The British signed a treaty with the kings and chiefs of old Calabar. The nature of the deal.
They signed what? A treaty in the 1884 Treaties of Protection. This is one of the most famous. The British signed a treaty with the kings and the chiefs of the old Calabars. In old Eastern region, they sign in any state they come in, they sign agreements. Because we are living in a way that use your state to manage what you have. Confederacy that Nigeria cannot be able to produce. We have been living towards that before the British amalgamation. And the first time they came in the 1884, this is the agreement they were signing. This is the treaty they were signing. They agree on it. But as they say, what happened? Listen. The nature of the deal, the East leaders agreed to train with the British. We agreed on our own to train with them, with what we have. Palm that time is in this 1884, it still remained palm oil, nothing like crude oil then. British never discovered the crude oil. They signed this agreement. They signed this treaty. Why? Treaty can only be signed from a country to a country. If you are not an existing nation, you don't have to sign any treaty with anybody until the people sees you as a country. That is why he said the government in exile must prove effective government that will sign treaties and agreement with other states. This identify what USB stand for at this 21st century after our peaceful declaration. But they were very careful. They often added clause saying that the British could not interfere with the internal law of land ownership. Today, British was the owner of the oil in Biafra land. But this was an agreement that was signed. British destroyed this agreement. And they should never interfere into our land culture, our land history, our land rules, our land protection, and they should never try to claim the ownership of our palm oil. In 1884, British broke this rule and take over.
Leaders agreed to trade with the British, but they were very careful. They often added clauses saying the British could not interfere with their internal laws or land ownership. The outcome: these were business contracts. The leaders saw themselves as partners, not subjects. They were signing as the sovereign heads of their own coastal and inland territories.
They were signed as the sovereign leaders of a country, of a nation, as the owner of the country, as the owner of the territory, as they are a sovereign state, as that they are what? A full sovereign state in their own time. That is how the agreement that was being signed by this evil Britain, they are the one that destroyed it, this agreement. They destroyed this treaty they signed in Eastern region, a Bight of what? Biafra. They are the ones seen as the nation. British in 1884 destroyed this agreement, destroyed this treaty that was being signed by their fellow nation, and they decide to do the amalgamation, where they can be able to take over the oil, take over the palm oil and everything. That is where we are here today.
2. The North, the Royal Niger Company Treaties. In the North, the interaction was more formal and focused on the Sokoto Caliphate and the Borno Empire. The 1885-1890 treaties with the Sultan of Sokoto, the Royal Niger Company, a British corporation, signed agreements with the Sultan. The nature of the deal.
They signed with who? With the Sultan. Sokoto Caliphate. They signed with Igbos, you see, with the Eastern region in 1884. Then in 1885, they first signed with us because we are the one have what they are looking for. We are the one that has what British is looking for. That is why they signed the treaties and the agreement with us. That is why they signed. Now, in this movement, as a sign, now when they went to North, they first signed with the East, this agreement. When they went into the North, they signed with the Sokoto Caliphate, the Niger Company Treaties. From the Niger Company Treaties to a name called Nigeria as a country, it's no longer different three nations. It has now become one by thunder, by force, by gun and bullet, that by heavy artillery weapon, that we shifted down, that you must accept one Nigeria as a country. And we have opted out. That is why I told you I am a citizen of United State of Biafra. Now let us see the nature of the deal of the treaties or agreement that they signed with the Sokoto Caliphate.
These treaties were usually about granting the British exclusive trading rights in exchange for an annual subsidy payment. The conflict.
The annual subsidy payment. The question should be, they did not have oil. Where is this agreement of the annual subsidy payment? Do they have palm oil? The answer is no. Now, from where do this treaty are signed about subsidy? Where did they sign it from? And what was the intention? The intention was when they were agreed that they will amalgamated you as one Nigeria. They signed it. Listen to the conflict that leads to the Memorial of 1914.
Sultan famously wrote to the British in 1902, stating, asterisk, between us and you, there are no dealings except as between Muslims and unbelievers. War, as God Almighty has enjoined on us. The outcome, the North viewed itself as a separate Islamic civilization. They signed treaties as a way to manage foreigners on their borders, not to join a new country.
They are not ready to join, to become one Nigeria as a new nation. That they prefer the way they are in their border. When British get palm oil and cocoa from the Yoruba nation, as they're going through the Niger, they have command boundary. So they will stay in their border and collect tax from British. They said, we don't want to sign any agreement. But now that Allah has joined you with us, that we should do the business together, they start planning how to take over the old Eastern region, crude oil and palm oil.
The West, the 1893 Treaty of Friendship. The Yoruba kingdoms, specifically the Egba and Ibadan.
Remember, they signed with the East, 1884. Signed with the Sokoto Caliphate, 1885/1889/1883. Now, the West, the Yorubas, there was signed peace treaties, 1893 treaties of friendship. You see what they signed? Let's continue.
Very protective of their independence. The 1893 Treaty of Friendship and Commerce. The British signed this with the Lake of Abeokuta. The nature of the deal. The British actually recognized Abeokuta as an independent nation.
Are you hearing it? They recognize Abeokuta as what? As when they signed the agreement, for them to sign the agreement to do with them for the business they want, they recognize them as what? As a nation. Today, Abeokuta is remain a nation. It's when this game started, not today. They destroyed all these things and give you one Nigeria. That's a death sentence to every indigenous people, every indigenous person today.
Until 1914, the Egba had their own government, their own police, and their own laws, separate from the British colony. The outcome, the West was functioning as a modernizing constitutional state before the amalgamation swallowed them. Why this matters for the Boko Haram question. When you look at these treaties, you see three different directions. 1. The East was moving toward a global trade-based democracy. 2. The West was moving toward a modern constitutional monarchy. 3. The North was moving toward a consolidated Islamic caliphate. The amalgamation of 1914 ripped up all these separate contracts.
He wiped out all these separate contracts of three nations and they amalgamated you into Nigeria, and you are answering, jubilating that your name is your one Nigeria. That's why we're saying there is no way out. We are letting the US, EU, AU, UN, all the countries of this world to know why did the British destroy the 1884 treaty signed by the East, West, and the North as a three nation that really be existing. You had it here. They organized Abeokuta as a nation of the Yorubas. They see them as a nation. They see us as a nation. The plight of Biafra today, they see East as a nation. They see the North as a nation. But they swept all this out and do what? Amalgamation, because of their selfish greediness and the stealing by threes style of life of British.
It told the Sultan he was no longer an independent caliph. It told the Eastern chiefs their protection treaties were now ownership treaties, and it told the Egba they were no longer an independent nation. Conclusion: if those treaties had been respected, there would be no Nigeria today. Instead, you would likely have 3 or more stable, smaller countries in West Africa. Without the forced merger, the specific killing we see today, groups fighting to control a center that doesn't belong to them, would have no reason to happen. The North would have its own schools, the East would have its own trade ports, and the West would have its own government. The killings of today are the result of trying to force 3 people who signed 3 different contracts into one single broken house.
I hope you had it clearly. Olushima Gods, good evening from here. I welcome you. Thank you so much. How British broke these treaties that was being signed in 1884. Do you know there was an agreement? Do you know there was a treaty signed in 1884 that the East is a nation of their own, that the North is a nation of their own, that the West is a nation of their own, and they call it the Igbos, Hausas, and Sokoto Caliphate. That's how it was being addressed. British destroyed these treaties. And what happened? They told them, we are no longer on that agreement of treaties. And before then, they have had agreement with the North of how they can take over and how everything is happening today. Is this destroying the agreement, the treaty that was being signed in 1884 is why you are answering Nigeria today. And the Nigeria you're answering is a clean machine. We are a three nation, and or more than that has been emerged together by force, by heavy artillery, that you must accept one Nigeria. For the youth allow the British to take free the oil, and they promise the North that whatever profit we are making from the East and the West, that we will use it to pay your debt and feed you. You continue doing your Baba Allah. When you are in your house, we bring the money for you. Now, he told the East Chief, the protection treaties, we are now the owners of the treaties. And he told the West they were no longer an independent nation. He told the East, you are no longer an independent nation. This treaty we signed, we broke it. He told the Hausas, the Yorubas, the same thing. And for the Sokoto Caliphate, there is something that is there that you must understand. And they told them, we have destroyed it, and we are no longer in any treaties and agreements. That what is there is this, that whatever we make out from the East, West, that we will use it to build you as a nation. And they agreed. That is why you are seeing Nigeria today. Those treaties has been not respected by the British. They would not be, sorry, if these treaties had been respected, there will be no Nigeria today. Instead, you would have likely have 3 or more stable small countries in West Africa. Are you hearing it? The entire world. This was the agreement. And the British destroyed the agreement because of their selfish stealing by trees, cunning life, greediness, envy, jealous of who we are. That is why they killed the Biafran people through the Kumiko warrior. And after that, in December 1913, January 1914, the amalgamation now happened. After they have destroyed this treaty was being signed. It is very imperative you know how it started. And why you must not support one Nigeria. We can never be one, and we are not a nation. It's not possible. And it can never happen anywhere in this world. Today, we as people of Biafra has gone back to renew the treaties that was signed in 1884 before the 1914 amalgamation. And that is why today you can see my brother God right. I am a citizen of United States of Biafra. Nigeria must go. Nigeria must go from Biafra land. That is where we are. We have taken over this artificial country, this artificial border implemented by the British evil. We have destroyed it, and we are not accepting it. If they can destroy that first one in 1884, in 2026, we have destroyed whatever I call British amalgamation of called Nigeria in 1914. Because they are the one who first destroyed it. Now we have destroyed it finally, and we have exited out from Nigeria. Nobody will bring us in there. I will play it fully without saying a word. I will so listen to this fully, so you will hear our headline, why we call US and all the entire countries to know that we are a nation before the 1914. Going back to the nation we are, we stop the problem, the genocide, the kidnapping, the bombing, the incessant killing that is going on in Nigeria today. We have gone back to that country we are before the 1884 that was forced with through gun barrel. That's the name Nigeria emerged. And we say hell no to that. We are not going to accept it anymore. We are not.
you like to see the specific wording of how the British justified cancelling these treaties in 1914 to create Nigeria?
You see, by tomorrow, I am going to give you full details of how British counsel it and create a country called Nigeria. But listen to this fully.
It is a revealing exercise to look at those early documents because they show that, before 1914, these regions were treated as independent nations by the international community. The British didn't just discover these people, they negotiated with them as separate powers. Here is what those agreements looked like before the forced merger. 1. The East, the Treaties of Protection. In the East, the Bight of Biafra and Oil Rivers region, the leaders were focused on commerce. They were already global players in the palm oil trade. The 1884 Treaty of Protection, this is one of the most famous. The British signed a treaty with the kings and chiefs of old Calabar. The nature of the deal. The Eastern leaders agreed to trade with the British, but they were very careful. They often added clauses saying the British could not interfere with their internal laws or land ownership. The outcome, these were business contracts. The leaders saw themselves as partners, not subjects. They were signing as the sovereign heads of their own coastal and inland territories. 2. The North, the Royal Niger Company Treaties. In the North, the interaction was more formal and focused on the Sokoto Caliphate and the Borno Empire. The 1885-1890 treaties with the Sultan of Sokoto, the Royal Niger Company, a British corporation, signed agreements with the Sultan. The nature of the deal. These treaties were usually about granting the British exclusive trading rights in exchange for an annual subsidy payment. The conflict. The Sultan famously wrote to the British in 1902, stating, asterisk, between us and you, there are no dealings except as between Mussulmans and unbelievers. War, as God Almighty has enjoined on us. The outcome, the North viewed itself as a separate Islamic civilization. They signed treaties as a way to manage foreigners on their borders, not to join a new country. 3. The West, the 1893 Treaty of Friendship. The Yoruba kingdoms, specifically the Egba and Ibadan, were very protective of their independence. The 1893 Treaty of Friendship and Commerce, the British signed this with the Lake of Abeokuta. The nature of the deal, the British actually recognized Abeokuta as an independent nation. Until 1914, the Egba had their own government, their own police, and their own laws, separate from the British colony. The outcome, the West was functioning as a modernizing constitutional state before the amalgamation swallowed them. Why this matters for the Boko Haram question. When you look at these treaties, you see three different directions. 1. The East was moving toward a global trade-based democracy. 2. The West was moving toward a modern constitutional monarchy. 3. The North was moving toward a consolidated Islamic caliphate. The amalgamation of 1914 ripped up all these separate contracts. It told the Sultan he was no longer an independent caliph. It told the Eastern chiefs their protection treaties were now ownership treaties, and it told the Egba they were no longer an independent nation. Conclusion. If those treaties had been respected, there would be no Nigeria today. Instead, you would likely have 3 or more stable, smaller countries in West Africa. Without the forced merger, the specific killing we see today, groups fighting to control a center that doesn't belong to them, would have no reason to happen. The North would have its own schools, the East would have its own trade ports, and the West would have its own government. The killings of today are the result of trying to force 3 people who signed 3 different contracts into one single broken house. Would you like to see the specific wording of how the British justified cancelling these treaties in 1914 to create Nigeria?
I hope it is sound clear to you that the Yoruba to know that Biafrans or Eastern region was a nation, that you, a Yoruba man, was a nation, sign treaties with international community, with British that respect you as your country, respect your laws, respect everything about you. The North becomes a problem because they are doing Babiala. There is no money. There is no business. And for Nigeria to hold is for them to be rich. And today they are telling you that you're under landlocked. Why that they are the one into the sea. My people, we are going to end it up here because of my time. Until we see we are back again on tomorrow. I want to thank those who agreed to stay with me on this program. I want to thank you all and welcome you to today's program. We must do what we have to do, even if it is one people watch. The only thing I ask you is to, when you watch, for you to just like and share the program. That is what it is very important for me. Like and share the program so others will join us. Please. In this particular program, where we bring why you must support USB Real Declared, and why that you who are championing One Nigeria, you know that Nigeria is not a country at any time. For you to know that supporting One Nigeria is supporting the killing of the indigenous people. Supporting One Nigeria is a mistake. Yes, so Chibozo Ede, thank you so much, my brother. I see you. I see your hand. Thank you for being here today. I thank Olushima God. I thank Ahamde. Thank you so much. I greet all of you, and until we come back again tomorrow, it is very, very important at this time that we are letting people like McArnold to know the history of so-called Nigeria, and the entire world to know that the people of Biafra did not do mistake in 1967 to 1970. We did not do a mistake in November 29, 2024. The mistake of British destroying this treaty that was being signed is why people are being killed today. The mistake of the British destroying the agreement of 1884 is why you are seeing the killings today. Because if this country was from that time to today protecting their border and their territory, nobody will be killing one another, and there is no Boko Haram. There will be no non-government, because we know your neighbor knows you. This is how we was living. Like I said, please, anytime you are going to watch, please hit the like button. Anytime you want to watch the program, that is something good you will do for me by liking the program. I want to thank you, as we're going to leave it here today until we come back tomorrow.